This edition of Mac Voices is sponsored by Smile, the makers of world-class software like PDF Pen for Mac, PDF Pen Pro for Mac, PDF Pen for iPhone and iPad, PDF Pen Scan Plus for iPhone and iPad, Text Expander for Mac, and Text Expander for iPhone and iPad. Learn more about all their great products at smilesoftware.com. Welcome back to Mac Voices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, it's been a ridiculously long time, an embarrassingly long time, since we talked to Mr. Ted Landau. So we're going to fix that right now. Ted, welcome. It's great to have you back. We've missed you.
Well, thank you. And it's always great to be back. You know I enjoy talking to you, and that's why we do these things.
Well, I know that, we've talked about it before, that you kind of stepped back from a lot of the tech writing and all that. And then my schedule's been crazy, your schedule's been crazy, and so it just took us this long to get back together. But we can't let it take this long next time. Just no question about it.
Well, yes, it is true that I since I've quote unquote retired, that I don't, not only don't I write as much anymore, but I don't follow the news as much anymore. I still look at it, but not with the intensity, obviously, that I did when I was writing about it. So I don't feel quite as expert as I used to be, but we'll see how it goes.
You slacker, you. Yeah. Well, first up, though, before we get into something a little bit different for us, I wanted to get an update on your home automation projects, because that was one of the things I think one of the last times we talked that you were really working on. And I wanted to see what upgrades have been made, or have you kind of hit a leveling off period with the home automation thing?
No, it keeps going, slowly but surely. I forget exactly where we were last time we talked, but I believe I had installed some lights that worked with Alexa, and were quite nice. Speaking of Alexa, I know I got an Alexa Spot, but I think I got it since the last time we spoke. So now I have one of the Echo devices with a screen, an Echo Spot. And most significantly, I think since the last time we talked, I have added a thermostat. I got an Ecobee thermostat with the room sensors. One of the problems with, not really a problem, but one of the things that make it difficult for me to evaluate just how wonderful it is that we have such a mild climate here, that it rarely gets below 50 or over 80. And so the heat often doesn't come on, the air conditioner often doesn't come on. And so it's not clear what I'm doing with the thermostat. It's sitting there idle, just relaxing. But I do enjoy using it to just monitor the temperature in the different rooms. It's nice to see, can be able to compare the downstairs temperature to the upstairs temperature and see what the discrepancies are, and do some balancing that allows me to, at least when the heat is coming on, try to equalize the heat throughout the house. And it's nice to be able to check, quickly set for a vacation setting when I'm going away for a couple of days or something like that, and monitor it while I'm not home. So I do use it. I must say, actually, speaking of air conditioning, where I live, which is right. It's in the East Bay of San Francisco, right near the water. There's very little need for air conditioning, and almost nobody in our neighborhood has an air conditioner, not even a room air conditioner, never mind central air conditioning. But for the last 3-4 years, it's been getting increasingly hot during the summer and fall months. Last fall, for instance, we had guests staying in our house over Labor Day weekend, and it got to be 106 degrees in our house. It was maybe even hotter in our house. It was 106 degrees outside. That was a record for El Cerrito, the city where I live. And we had several days where it was in the 90s, pushing close to 100. And so I said, that's it. I'm getting air conditioning, and there's a global warming. It's just going to get worse every year. I'm done with this. Even if I only need it for a few weeks a year, it'll be worth it. So last January, I put in central air conditioning, which is when I got the new thermostat, the Ecobee thermostat. Since then, I haven't had to use air conditioning. This is like one of the coldest summers on record. So as wonderful as the thermostat seems to be, it hasn't been something that's been getting a lot of use. So, but that's one thing. Still might get some days when we need air conditioning, and then of course hopefully there'll be some days when the heat comes on in the winter. We'll see how it goes, but I like it. I certainly would recommend it. And the sensors were really cool. That's the ability to monitor separate temperatures in different rooms, I think is a big plus for how it works. I know the Nest gets a lot of good reviews too. I'm sure either one would be good, but I'm real happy with the Ecobee. Sorry. The other newest device that I've gotten just like a week or two ago is a Schlage front door lock. I got their most recent one is called the Schlage Sense, I think. I got a Schlage partly because I have Schlage locks throughout the house, and I was able to rekey the deadbolt to work with the key that I already have, which I thought was a nice bonus. And this one got good reviews. So it is one that requires a keypad, which I actually like. It's a little bulkier than the ones that don't have any keypad at all. There's some where you just somehow, I think it works primarily through the phone, where if you just touch the lock, it opens. But this one has a keypad in front, but attractive, and it's been working perfectly again since I got it. I've been very happy with it. You lock the door with one button press, no keypad number needed, and then you open it with a keypad number. Or you can open it from your iPhone app, or you can open it from a traditional lock and key. You have all three options. And you can create guest codes so that you can give codes to other people to use, which you can then delete when they're gone and stuff like that. So it's worked very nicely.
Go back for a second to the Amazon device. You said you got one of the ones with the screen, and I've kind of lost track, to be honest with you. So is it the Spot?
Yes, the Amazon Spot. So, I mean, the can't say it. The Echo Spot.
Yeah. So,
yes.
So what? I'm really intrigued as to that. So, is that one with a camera in it, or does it just have a screen?
Yes, it has a camera in it.
Okay.
No, it doesn't have a camera in it. Sorry, I shouldn't say. Yes, it does have a camera in it. Yeah, I never have used it. That's why I'm not sure. You can use it to make FaceTime-like calls, but I don't think I've ever used it that way. I use it just partly it's just an alarm clock. The clock face is on most of the time, and it's just in a location where we had a clock radio, and I use it as a clock radio basically a lot. I can just say play the NPR station, which is what I typically will listen to, or some music station, and it just starts playing it. And otherwise it functions as a clock or as a standard, and they can do all the things that you can do with an Echo that doesn't have a screen. I use it for those things too. And sometimes it's nice with the screen, things will pop up like if I say, what's on my shopping list, it will visually show me the entire shopping list. And so I don't have to depend just on the audio feedback to know what's on the shopping list. And so there are some, and one thing that I actually was looking forward to using, which has not worked out very well, is I have another smart device, which we may have talked about, a Ring doorbell. And it works with the Ring doorbell to show me who's at the front door, which I thought would be very nice. The problem is it's so, I was going to use a curse word there, but so fill in your own curse word slow, that it's functionally useless. I mean, by the time I am able to walk over and tell the Echo device to show me who's at the front door, and it does all the necessary connections, the person has moved to a different zip code, I think. It really it takes a long time. The only thing it would ever be useful for is if it was really somebody who was going to, wait around for all that to happen. So, but if I was in a hurry to see who was at the front door, it would be useless. And I think Ring is working on improving that. So hopefully that will get better. But for the moment, that's something that's good in theory, but not so good in practice.
Do you think that's the Amazon device's fault? I'm being careful what words I use here so I don't trigger anything. The Amazon device's fault or the Ring's fault? Because I've had great luck with my Ring doorbell using the iPhone app.
I haven't had great luck even with the iPhone app. So maybe the problem is neither. Maybe the problem is me. But when I go to the iPhone app to look at it, even that takes a short time before. Just the whole act of getting the iPhone out of my pocket and locating the app and opening the app, and just that alone takes some time, and then it's usually like 15 to 30 seconds before the image actually appears. And so You're talking about over a minute, before I get an image, and that's not very long in the world scheme of things. But if you have someone who rang your doorbell, they're not used to having to wait a minute to find, to get any response whatsoever. People leave after a minute. So
Yeah. That's interesting. And honestly, I did not know that the Amazon device could show you who's at the door through the ring. I thought that was only on the app, on the iPhone app, or I guess Android app, whatever. So that's a function I did not know about. That's interesting.
yeah,
Huh.
and that's those are the two big ones. I also got a new Yamaha piano, which is not exactly smart home, but it has also, compared to the older one that I had, it has all sorts of spectacular new features. It has Bluetooth built in, which I didn't think I would use very much, but it's kind of cool because it allows me to take my iPhone and call up any music. Essentially, the piano becomes a Bluetooth speaker for my iPhone, which means that I can go to my iPhone and play any music I choose from Spotify or Apple Music or anything else, YouTube, whatever. I can play any music I want, and it will play over the piano speakers, and then I can play the piano over it. So I can play an accompaniment. I can have whatever, Bruno Mars singing some song, and I can play piano accompaniment all through the same speaker system. And it also has software that works over Wi-Fi, which is kind of cool too, where among other things, it's a chord analyzer. So I can call up a song from my iTunes library. It will analyze the chords that the song uses and give me a lead sheet essentially of the music, and then a cursor will follow along, showing me what chord to play to keep up with what the music is doing. And that's, there's a lot of amazing features like that are much more sophisticated than the last time I got a piano, I think, was in 2006. So in the last 12 years, there's been a lot of advances. So
You surprised me when you said that the piano would play the music from your iPhone. I really was expecting you to say that you could take the piano and send it by Bluetooth out to an external speaker.
No, it's the other way around. There's no need to send to it. The speakers built into the piano are pretty spectacular, actually. Okay. And you wouldn't want to do that. The speakers actually sound better than some of my audio systems. So they're really good speakers. So
interesting. Forgive me. I'm kind of hung up on the Amazon device though. So I have to ask the obvious question. You had no qualms about putting an Amazon camera in your home?
Well, I didn't. I had thought about whether I wanted it in the bedroom. I sort of like the idea of having a radio alarm clock by my bedroom because I have one right now. I have an iHome one that works with my, I can charge the iPhone from it and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I thought about replacing it with a Spot. I said, I don't know if I want a device pointed at me while I'm sleeping in bed or whatever other activities I might do while I'm in bed. The kitchen is where the Spot is right now, and I'm less concerned about that. But basically, I have made a deal with the devil, however you want to put it. I basically said I'm giving up my privacy to Amazon, and until I find evidence that they've abused my willingness to do that, I'm going to just stick with that because I get so much benefit from it. I mean, as we've talked about endless times in previous sessions here, I think the Amazon Echo is one of the great devices I've gotten in the last decade. So, and I keep finding new ways to use it. We have 5 of them in the house, plus these other devices that work with it, and I would not want to give it up.
Hey, again, like you say, we've talked about it endless times. Mm-hmm. That trade-off of convenience and usefulness versus privacy/security, maybe mm-hmm. I mean not security, but privacy, is that's an equation everybody has to figure out for themselves, because you can have so many things that are so convenient, but you've given up a lot of your privacy to get them. So, mm-hmm. yeah, no Google devices.
No, I just for simplicity, and no HomePad either. HomePod. No HomePod. I think that last time we were talking, which honestly I don't remember how long ago it was. This was so long ago. But the last time we were talking, I think the HomePod was already on the market. And I made a decision that for various reasons, I wrote a whole column about it on my Slanted Viewpoint blog about why I wasn't going to get into a HomePod, and I'm still sticking with that. So it's simpler to just have one platform for the moment. If at some point another platform like Google or Apple's platform seems so much better, I will probably do a wholesale switch and give up on the Echo altogether and switch over to the other, but it hasn't gotten there yet. And I might add in that regard that one of the downsides of the smart home business altogether is the lack of unification on a standard. I mean, it would be nice if everything, for instance, worked with HomeKit. And some devices I have work with HomeKit. HomeKit has its own problems, I have to say, to get sidetracked here. HomeKit hasn't always proven to be the most reliable of interfaces for a main hub for a smartphone. I had a light switch that I just had to use as a timer. It was so that it went on when we weren't home or something like that. And it never worked reliably. And I got another one that didn't go through HomeKit. The first one I had went through HomeKit. And I got another one that worked without going through HomeKit, and it worked perfectly. And I'm pretty much convinced that the HomeKit was the source of the problem. So, but I think Apple keeps improving it. So I think it gets better. But backtracking now to the original point I was going to make is that I now have half a dozen different smart home devices in the house between the thermostat and a garage door opener I got. That's another thing we didn't talk about. I got a new garage door, a Chamberlain garage door opener that works with an iPhone app now. But for example, one of the things that they said about the garage door opener was that it could work with Siri. Which I thought would be kind of cool, because it could mean I'm driving up to the house and I could just essentially say through my iPhone. I think I'm not even quite sure how it all worked. Maybe it said it would work with HomeKit, not Siri. I don't remember, but it was voice controlled. And in essence, it would allow the idea would be that I could just be driving up to my house in my car and speak into the car and say, "Open the garage door," magic word. And the garage door would be opening without me having to do anything else, which I thought sounded cool. But in order to get that feature to work, it had to work through HomeKit. It couldn't just work through the garage door opener's own app, and it required a special hub proprietary to that device that I would have to buy. It was like $80 to get this hub that worked, that would allow the garage door opener to connect to HomeKit, to be the intermediary. And it seems like almost every device I have has that sort of thing. And the same thing with the garage door opener. I'm talking about the garage door opener. The same thing with the front door lock. That if there's certain features that the front door lock can have, only if I get this $50 or $60 device that then serves as an intermediary between the device and HomeKit. And then, of course, there are some devices that don't work with HomeKit at all and have their own hub that you have to use. And so by the time you're done, I can imagine as this keeps growing, I keep getting 5 or 6 different intermediary devices to work with HomeKit, 2 or 3 different hubs that aren't HomeKit compatible, and nobody besides me will ever. My wife keeps saying if I die, she's just going to throw it all out because she's never going to be able to figure out how it was all supposed to work. So. So that is, I think, at some point down the road there needs to be a mass, simplification of how all these things interact. But I think we're many years away from that.
Yeah, it's one of the challenges, and it's unfortunate that we're not seeing it thin out just a little bit. I think pretty clearly that Siri and Amazon, or more Apple and Amazon, are the 2 big players now. There's some of the smaller people that are still hanging around, but those are the 2. And it's frustrating. And of course, we've had the discussions about security versus privacy and all those things. Apple puts a premium on privacy. Amazon doesn't seem to quite as much. Mm-hmm. And if you're comfortable, as we said earlier, making balancing the equation one direction, then go with the Amazon. And if you feel strongly about balancing it the other, then go with the Apple solution, and live with the goods and the bads of both solutions, because neither is ideal.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I agree.
So, Okay, well, yeah, that's quite a few things that you've added. Did you install the garage door yourself, the garage door opener?
No, I had that professionally installed. It was part of a repair to the garage door itself.
Oh,
So I just had it all done. But I did do the Schlage lock by myself.
hmm.
That wasn't very difficult to do. Anybody who's reasonably competent, and my level of competence for doing those things is pretty low. So if I could do it, most people could do it, I think. So
Yeah, yeah. That's the other thing is some of this stuff. I like the Ecobee thermostat. That's everything I've seen says yeah, you can do that yourself. But I'm kind of like you. I'm not, and where I live, it's a bit of an issue. I want to make sure it's absolutely functioning properly because if I go away for a week, and in
Mhm.
the winter, I mean, it's one thing for the house to get hot. It'll cool back down. But in the winter, you can have pipes freeze and everything else. So
Yeah.
I want to be darn sure that it's done right.
Yeah, I lived in Michigan for 27 years, so I'm familiar with those concepts. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Today's edition of Mac Voices is supported by Smile, the makers of world-class software. You're probably used to me telling you about Text Expander from Smile, my most used utility. Today, though, I want to remind you that Text Expander isn't just for your Mac. Text Expander for iPhone and iPad is an equally important part of my productivity toolkit, and it should be part of yours too. Text Expander for the iPhone and iPad takes the form of a keyboard app, which makes it accessible to every app on your iPhone or iPad, so you have the power of Text Expander available anytime, anywhere. Even better, there are a variety of Text Expander enhanced apps available. Many you probably already own and use that have the Text Expander capabilities built in. And these are some of the best-in-class apps out there, not some no-name apps that you aren't sure of or have never heard of. Emails, notes, documents, web surfing, everything is easier and faster with Text Expander for your iPhone and iPad. And having all your already created snippets available everywhere is a convenience that you can't appreciate until you have it. You will need the Text Expander account that goes along with the Text Expander subscription to sync your snippets across your devices, but that's just another way that Text Expander delivers not only value, but also a cross-platform experience that helps save you time and effort and introduces speed and consistency in your messaging and data entry. Text Expander on iOS is another great app from Smile and is free on the App Store. If you're a Text Expander user, be sure you're taking full advantage. And if you're not, why not? Visit smilesoftware.com to download a free demo version and find out what you've been missing. That's smile at smilesoftware.com, the makers of world-class software. Thanks to Smile for their support of Mac Voices. Ted, to finish off or to do the second part of the show here, I thought we'd have a little fun, if you're up for it.
Well, whether it's fun or not remains to be seen.
Yeah.
But you seem to be thinking it will be fun. But
Well, I think it will. I want to toss out just a few things to you. I'm sort of taking the lightning round concept from my friends over at Mission Log, John Champion and Ken Ray, twisting it a little bit, and going to just ask you to give us, 2, 3, 4 sentences reaction to a few of these things.
Okay.
And then if you want to go longer, that's great, but no pressure, no pressure. What do you
Okay.
think?
Okay.
All right, here we go. And some of these you may not necessarily have even paid attention to. Like you say, you've been away from it a little bit. The newest MacBook Pro revision with more RAM and better speed and all that.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I have not followed that at all for a couple of reasons. I mean, I'm aware of it, so I shouldn't say I haven't followed it at all, but I haven't followed the issues involved and the pros and cons very much, primarily because I'm almost gone from the market for an MacBook. My wife uses it still, but I don't use it anymore. I have an iMac that sits on my desk. That's what we're using right now for us to have this conversation. And I have an iPad, which I use when I don't want to be tied to my desk. And that's basically it. I've had no use for a MacBook anymore. And the other thing is, I have not, to the extent that I do follow these things, I haven't been impressed or enthused or whatever the word is with the new offerings from Apple. I read about the keyboard problems and whether it's been solved or not, and I don't see any the Magic Touch Bar or whatever it is called exactly has never been very well received, and I had a friend that had one. I played with it for a while. I didn't think that I would wind up using it very much, and I don't see any spectacular new features being added one way or the other. And really, there's when I think, what's going on in the MacBook world right now that would make me say, wow, that's a game changer. I got to reconsider whether I want to start using a MacBook again. Nothing is the answer so far. So really, I've stayed out of it.
Okay. 2 words: Mac Mini.
Well, I'm hopeful. I've heard projections that coming up this fall, a new Mac Mini will be coming out after, I think, 4 or 5 years now, I think, since the last time they had an update, which wasn't that substantial anyway. I had long placed a hope in the Mac Mini as being the sort of compromise for people like myself, who on the one hand wanted the flexibility to have a headless machine that I could have my own monitor, so that I could replace the monitor with a better one later on if I wanted to, without having to replace the whole computer, and so on, and be able to maybe even get inside the machine a little bit to upgrade the specs as necessary. In other words, like the old Mac Pros used to be able to do, but not have to be where Apple's Mac Pro has gone these days, which is so pro that there's no justification for me to spend the money on. I don't need to spend $5,000 to have a computer so that I can talk to you. So the Mac Mini was sort of this middle device that might offer some of the advantages that I want without the price overhead that I didn't want. And unfortunately, Apple has never seen fit to do that, and to the point where I was pretty much giving up that they ever would. But now I'm hearing some projections that not only is a new update coming out, but it might be exactly the sort of update that I've been hoping for, where it's moving a little bit more in a pro direction. It'll cost perhaps significantly more money than the old Mini used to cost, but still substantially less than outfitting a Mac Pro. So I'm hopeful. We'll see what happens.
Great. What do you want in a new iPhone?
Well, it's an interesting question. The short answer I can give you for the moment is almost nothing. I got an iPhone 10 last year, and I was thinking about it, and I was saying to myself just the other week, I said, self, what could Apple do to the iPhone 10 this year that would convince me to sell the one I have now or give it to somebody, like my wife, and get a new one? At one level, the answer is they don't have to do all that much, because I can sufficiently afford it that if I think there's anything that I want and my wife doesn't have an iPhone 10 yet, I could just try to justify and say, okay, I'm getting the new one. We'll both have iPhone 10s, or whatever they're going to call the new one. But if I was at all trying to be more monetarily responsible and not get it unless it was really significant improvement over the one I have now, I honestly can't think of what they would do that would make me say, oh, I have to run out and replace the iPhone 10 that I have now. There are some software changes that I would like, but I don't think I need to get a new iPhone to support those. If they spectacularly improved the camera in some way, which is already excellent, and I'm really loving the built-in optic 2x zoom. If they start adding something like that, where I could do where it imitated more a single lens reflex type of camera than it now does, that might be something. But I can't imagine that there's that much of a big change coming. I can imagine changes, 3, 4, 5 years down the road that would get me to want to get a new one, but I don't see any of them coming this year.
Okay. You may have already kind of addressed this a little bit, but the almost new now for a few months, iMac Pro.
Yeah. I'm still thinking. Sorry, I'm still thinking again about the iPhone. Oh. I think one thing that might really make a difference to me is if they were able to put in a fingerprint sensor that was built into the screen, so that you could choose between face and finger, because as much as I like the face and I'm happy that I have it, there are times when I would appreciate having a fingerprint sensor as well. There are times when I don't want to have to lean over the device to get it to see my face, and just being able to reach over with my finger would be more convenient. So if I had a choice of both, that would be kind of cool. And I don't want them to have to put back the home button to accomplish that, but if there was a way that they could accomplish that without doing that, that would be a significant improvement. All right, the iMac Pro you were asking about. The iMac Pro is again in the ballpark for me of the Mac Pro, which is that they haven't upgraded yet, which we're still waiting to see. And that is, it's overkill for me. I think it looks cool, it looks great, and I personally don't see a need to spend the money to get it. I'm perfectly happy with the iMac that I have now. I have a 2015 iMac with an all SSD storage. It's been super fast. It's convenient. It's, I guess, 3 years old now because it's from 2015, and a little bit in the lines of what I'm saying about the iPhone. Apple hasn't done anything with either the newer iMacs or the iMac Pro that have made someone like me say, wow, I need to get one of those new ones so that I can do all those things that I can't do with the one I have now. There's nothing like that. Again, I imagine there are people who push the limits of their machines much more than I do that might be able to say things like that. But I look at the iMac Pro or the new regular iMacs, and there's nothing that they do that are leaning me to think that I need a new machine. I suspect the iMac that I'm using right now will last me at least another 3 years.
Okay. Apple is the first $1 trillion company.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm sorry, I'm going to backtrack again a second. One of the differences between the iMac I have now and newer machines, I will say, is that the newer machines have USB-C and Thunderbolt 3. I'm still on USB 3 and Thunderbolt 2. But to be honest with you, I'm almost happier that way. And from all the stuff that I read, I'm almost happy that I don't have to deal with USB-C, because all the devices, peripheral devices that I have are USB 3. I'd have to deal with a whole bunch of adapters or new devices, and the Thunderbolt 2 that I'm using is working perfectly well. So even there, I'm not in a hurry. That's almost for the moment until the market stabilizes. That's almost a negative rather than a positive. So I will add that.
Okay.
What was the
Apple is a $1 trillion company.
Oh, Apple's a $1 trillion company. What can I say? I mean, as I think we have occasionally mentioned, I bought Apple stock in 1994 and bought more of it a couple of years later when Apple almost went bankrupt in 1997-8. My broker tried to get me to sell Apple. He said, this company's going to go under, get rid of it while you can still get some money for it. And I said, it's selling for such a low price now that if it goes bankrupt, I'm not going to lose that much. I've already lost most of it. So I'm just going to hold on to it and see what happens. And I was actively, at the time, very actively involved in the Apple community. I was doing MacFixit and writing books and working for Macworld. And I said, it feels good to have an investment in the company that I'm devoting my career to. Well, it turned out to be a very smart decision. That relatively small investment at the time is worth. I don't want to quote exactly how much worth, but it's worth a lot of money right now. It makes a big difference in how much money we have. So, and I keep joking. In the last few weeks, with Apple having spiked upwards, every time I want to buy something that costs more than $10, I say, Apple's paying for it. Of course, I'm aware that what goes up can come down, and unless I sell it, Apple stock could tank in some recession or something like that. But for the moment, I'm enjoying that Apple's a $1 trillion company.
So, last topic: Tim Cook's leadership.
To be frank, I don't give much thought to that anymore. On the positive side, I would say the fact that I don't give much thought to it is a good thing. Because it's like air. When the air is perfectly fine and you're breathing it, and you don't think about it. You don't say, "Oh, I'm sure glad there's air." It's when it gets polluted and you start coughing that you start thinking about it. And so if Tim Cook is like air, things are pretty good because I'm not focusing on it very much. I think obviously Apple's a $1 trillion company, as we just talked about. You'd like to think he must have some responsibility for that and pushing Apple in the right direction. He introduced the Apple Watch, a major new product, which got off to a rocky start. I think by all accounts. Is at least a limited success, if not a runaway success. Certainly shows no sign of being dropped from Apple's lineup. I have an Apple Watch and really enjoy it. I'm wearing it right now and would not want to stop wearing it. So I'm pleased with that as his major new product. The AirPods, though not on the same level as the watch, are a new foray into something, and it seems to be working out quite well. The iPhone 10. I'm happy with, working out quite well. Their recommitment to the Pro market, coming out with the iMac Pro and the promised Mac Pro, and perhaps a more Pro-like Mac Mini, all seem to be moves in the right direction as well. So I think it's more or less steady as she goes. He's making Apple better and keeping the profits such that Apple stock is staying high. There's an Apple car supposedly still coming down the road, which we can look forward to. So that's all good. Really, that's most of it. I think you don't have the level of dramatic innovation and change that you had with Steve Jobs there. You don't have iPods and iPhones and iPads and stuff coming out, but I'm not so sure that's not a function of. I'm not so sure that if Steve Jobs was still here, that we wouldn't be in a similar position, because the market itself has been maturing. I don't see anybody else coming out with equally spectacular devices. It's not like, well, Apple isn't doing any more, but so-and-so is. No. The only spectacular device I think really that has come out since Steve Jobs died that would be at that level is what we already talked about. The Amazon Echoes and the HomePods and the whole audio-controlled devices. And maybe that's some place where I can be critical of Apple, because certainly you look at the Amazon Echo and you look at Apple's HomePod, and you say, gee, why isn't the situation reversed? Why isn't Apple the one who has the wide-ranging success that Amazon is having? They really seem to be slow to get on the bandwagon, and even though sometimes Apple is slow to get on the bandwagon, when they do, they quickly catch up. That doesn't seem to be the case here. So I think that was a significant misstep, but not a death knell by any means.
Some really interesting answers in there, Ted. I mean, about all of them, not just Tim Cook's leadership, but just in general. Yeah, and I was just curious to see, where you would go with those. If there were no leading questions or anything, just throw them out on the table and see what comes out. So thank you for participating in that, because folks, I did not give you the topics ahead of time, so those were shoot from the hip answers.
Yeah, it was good. It gave me a chance to think about some things I actually hadn't thought much about.
Good. Well, we will do this again, because it's been way too long since we had a chance to talk, either online or offline, and I always enjoy it. And you give me some things to think about too. So
okay. Well, good. Well, we're both thinking. That's good.
Yeah, that's we're not that far gone yet.
That's right.
Anything else? The Slanted Viewpoint blog, is that you're still occasionally posting to that?
Yeah, but not much on Apple stuff anymore. It's become more political. I've become much more politically active as a result of all the things going on now than I ever thought I would be. I'm actually still doing writing, as it turns out, but for Indivisible, a political organization. So, my focus has shifted somewhat.
Is that something we can steer people to? Are the writings online or?
Yeah, but it's pretty narrowly focused for the East Bay here for the moment. So
okay, understood. Well,
nothing that a national audience would want to see. So
yeah, well, there's this thing called Google, so that if they really want to find it, they can probably find it.
Yeah,
that is great to see you. Thanks so much for the time, as always.
Thank you. We'll see you next time.
Sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is Mac Voices. It was great to have Ted back. It's always great to have you here with us. Hope you will join us next time, whoever we talk to. Until the next time, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our MacVoices Facebook group and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us at patreon.com/MacVoices and join these folks who help keep MacVoices coming to you. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.